Hey friends, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today. So today's video is a very exciting video in that it is my #1 all-time highly requested video in regard to how I create my concept maps / study guides and how I personally prepare with the information I'm given in lecture for a test. So if this is something that you're interested in, feel free to join me and we'll get into it. So in order for you to get started in creating your very own concept maps, things you're going to need are access to a computer and a word processor. You're also going to want to have your lecture PowerPoint or notes at hand, whichever you would prefer to use, or you could even use your textbook. So here you can see I have my Microsoft Word. So we're going to boot that puppy up and create a blank document. And then over here I have my PowerPoint. So we're just going to be working with cardiovascular complications because y'all know I'm a cardiac nurse. I love me some cardiovascular system. And also this was a pretty lecture. See, isn't that so nice? My professor went above and beyond with this lecture. So first things first, I'm going to show you how to create the actual document in Word. If you use a different word processor, I know that there are some that you can access online for free, or if you use whatever Apple has on their computers, I have no clue what it's called because I am not an Apple computer gal. I'm sure you can figure out how to do this fairly easily. So the first thing that I want to do is click on the tab that says Insert, and then I'm going to come over here to what says Table, and I'm going to insert a 2x1 table. So there we already kind of have the start of our concept map. The next thing I'm going to do is come over into this second row here, or column I should say, and I'm going to hit this bullet. It says create a bulleted list. Now sometimes you can back tab it so that you have more room over here. So what I just hit was the decrease indent button, and that way it opens up some more free space in our second column. You have more room to type. So this is literally it, you guys. So when you're typing through, let's say that we're going to be, well, hey, we can just reference our PowerPoint. So I'm going to pull up both of these screens here. Let's say that we are learning about heart failure, okay? Sorry, I had to make that a little bit smaller so I could see it. So heart failure. So how I would approach this would be heart failure, and I never use Times New Roman because we have to use that for APA. So I like to go outside of the norm here and make it my own. Oh my gosh, I just typed heat failure. It's not heat failure, it's heart failure. So the font that I prefer to use is Century Gothic just because it's pretty. You can use whatever type of a font that you want. You can also adjust the text size, of course, to whatever is most conducive to your studying. So I'm just gonna put that down to size 11, Century Gothic, so heart failure. So what this slide says is that it's also used interchangeably with CHF. I'm not gonna type all of that because quite honestly, who cares? I'm just gonna put CHF. It's a syndrome rather than a disease is what's next on my PowerPoint here. So I'm going to put, it's a syndrome. Impaired cardiac pumping. So, I mean, that's fairly straightforward. It's characterized by ventricular dysfunction, reduced exercise tolerance, diminished quality of life, and shortened life expectancy. So what I might do is put in ventricular dysfunction decreased, so that's a down arrow. That's just what I use as a little shortcut here. Reduced exercise tolerance, decreased quality of life, shortened life expectancy. Okay. The next little portion on the slide says 1 to 100 older adults have it. No one cares. Most people are older than 75. That's common sense. Already 550,000 new cases each year. No one cares. Okay. So next slide. Etiology. So we're still talking about heart failure, but we're getting more into the etiology of it. So what I'm going to do is type again heart failure, and put a colon, etiology. So on my slide again, it says multiple risk factors, multiple causes, types of heart failure. So actually this was kind of like a just kidding slide. We're not actually talking about the etiology, we're talking about the types. So we have systolic versus diastolic. We have right-sided versus left-sided. We have acute versus chronic. We have forward versus backward. And a lot of these are synonymous, you guys. High output versus low output. Okay, so now we have our types. Next slide. Causes. Now we're actually getting into our etiologies, okay? But evidently she had to first define like, oh hey, here are the causes or the types so that I can break it down into the specific etiologies for each cause. So now I'm going to go into acute heart failure causes. Acute MI, arrhythmias, PE, hypertensive crisis, myocarditis, ventricular septal defect, thyrotoxicosis, papillary rupture. Okay, chronic heart failure causes. CAD, hypertension, rheumatic heart disease, congenital heart disease, cor pulmonale, cardiomyopathy, anemia, bacterial endocarditis, valvular disorders, and then we can do other heart failure causes, infection, hypothyroidism, nutritional deficiencies, hypervolemia, Paget's disease, pulmonary disease, and aging. Okay, so this slide, there wasn't a whole lot that I cut out simply because it's really truly already like broken down into bullet points. So let's see what our next slide looks like. Here are our classifications. I would recommend asking your professor if you're actually going to need to know that. I know that on the NCLEX they might reference it briefly, but it's fairly straightforward. It's progressive in each of the classification scales, the ACC/AHA and the New York Heart Association. The New York Heart Association is the one that you use more often. So here we are describing the different types of heart failure at a little more depth. So let's look into systolic heart failure. Most common, ventricles can't contract normally and eject adequate volume. So it says decreased blood in parentheses. So I'm going to say decreased output / contraction. Ejection fraction falls, so decreased EF. Blood backs up into the pulmonary circulation. So whoa, how did we get up there? Pulmonary congestion. Pulmonary venous pressure rises, meaning that the hydrostatic pressure goes into the alveoli and pulmonary tissues. So that's kind of the exact same thing as pulmonary congestion. So I'm not going to type that again. And it says decreased cardiac output, which we already have up here. So next we're going to go to diastolic heart failure. See how much information you're able to eliminate? Look at how verbose this chunk on our slide is, and then look at my main points. 1, 2, 3, 4, from 2, 4, 6, and I have like a fraction of the words over there. Which do you feel is going to be easier to study? The one that's redundant and very verbiage heavy, or the one that's literally just our solid points? It's the most common type of heart failure. It's decreased output and contraction, decreased EF, leading to pulmonary congestion. I don't know about you guys, but I much prefer the one over here. So let's do this diastolic heart failure and see what we come up with. So the ventricles can't fill normally and relax. So decreased ventricular relaxation, leading to decreased ventricular filling. Causes a decreased stroke volume. Systolic function is usually normal, okay. Preserved. Characterized by high filling pressures leading to pulmonary and systemic congestion. So high filling pressures leading to pulmonary and systemic congestion. So that one wasn't as abridged as our other example, but you can see that we were able to cut out some unnecessary language. Here we're looking at the different side effects. I think this will probably be the last slide that I do because I feel like this video is getting a little long and you guys are probably understanding the general concept at this point. So we are looking at our forward effect, well, side effects, I guess, and what happens in each type of heart failure. So again, heart failure, left-sided, signs and symptoms. Well, actually that would be more like patho. So it's forward / systemic effects is most common. We already wrote that somewhere. We have LV dysfunction, which leads to backup into pulmonary veins. Right-sided failure are the backward effects. So because of our increased pulmonary pressures, we go into right-sided failure. And then we have increased pulmonary congestion. And then you can see here, oh, we have fluid leaking into the capillary bed and to the alveoli. And that's pretty much it. Now we're going to go into our right-sided failure patho. So heart failure, right-sided patho. So this is more backward effects. So right-sided failure is RV dysfunction. Whoops. RV dysfunction. Blood backflows to the right atrium into venous circulation. So back up into venous circulation. Venous congestion and systemic circulation leads to peripheral edema. Well, we kind of already have established that, so we can maybe just put systemic congestion. Primary cause, caused by left-sided failure. Other causes, cor pulmonale, right RV infarction. Okay, so again, we didn't narrow out a ton of information, but it is a lot more organized. To me, this is a lot easier to follow. Maybe that's just me, but this is pretty much what my concept maps look like, you guys. This is how you create them. I know that a lot of you have been curious about that, and it's been a long time in the making. I'm really happy that I was able to make this video for you guys today, and I really hope that it helps you in your studying. If you have any questions about anything that you saw today with regard to creating the concept map, or anything that I included versus decided not to include, or anything at all, please feel free to leave that below. Make sure to check me out on Instagram. I created a new Instagram, and I would love for you to follow me for some continued nursing learning. And again, thank you for the support. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.